You know that feeling, right? You've planted the perfect garden bed, the rows are neat, the soil is rich, and you're already dreaming about the harvest. But then you come back a week later and it's all just shredded. It is one of the most frustrating things in gardening. So today, we're going to get into the 5 culprits most likely to ambush your radish patch and, more importantly, how to build an organic fortress to stop them.
And this picture, this is exactly it. This comes from our source material. The author planted this beautiful bed of radishes, picturing those crisp, peppery slices on some buttered bread. But just 2 weeks later, flea beetles and root maggots turned that dream into this absolute nightmare you're looking at. The leaves were just chewed to bits, and the roots themselves were all tunneled out. A total loss.
You know, that whole disaster taught a really crucial lesson. Radishes grow super fast, which is awesome, but the pests, they attack just as quickly. So what it all boils down to is this. You can't just plant your seeds and hope for the best. Nope. You need a defense plan from day one, and that starts with knowing exactly who you're up against. Okay, let's dive in. We can split our enemies into 2 main groups. First up, we've got the leaf attackers. These are the pests that do their damage right out in the open, chewing away at the parts of the plant that soak up sunlight and, fuel all that growth. So first on our hit list is the flea beetle. Their handiwork is, well, it's pretty hard to miss. It literally looks like someone blasted your radish leaves with a tiny shotgun. Then you've got aphids. Their style is totally different. They don't chew holes. Instead, they gather in these creepy, dense clusters and just suck the life right out of the plant. And rounding out our lineup of visible villains is the slug. They leave behind these ragged, uneven holes, and of course, that signature, unmistakable slime trail. So let's break down that first attacker a little more, the flea beetle. We're talking about tiny, shiny black beetles that, and this is true to their name, will jump like a flea if you get too close. The damage is those very distinct shot holes. But here's the really critical part you need to remember, the timing. They are at their most dangerous in the first 3 weeks after your seed sprout. That's when your seedlings are smallest and most vulnerable. So how do we fight back? First off, think physical barriers. Get a lightweight row cover over your bed the second you sow the seeds. Don't wait to see damage. Second, you gotta play smart. Plant what's called a trap crop, something like arugula, nearby. Flea beetles love it, and they'll often go for that instead of your radishes. And number 3, it's all about resilience. Healthy, well-watered plants are just, well, they're less attractive to pests. All right, next on the list, the aphids. You'll find these tiny little bugs hanging out in clusters, usually hiding on the undersides of leaves. They're not chewing the plant, they're sucking the sap right out of it. This causes the leaves to curl up and turn yellow. They also leave behind this sticky gunk called honeydew. Now, you might be thinking, who cares about the leaves? I'm here for the root. Well, here's why you should care. Weak, stressed out leaves can't make enough energy, and that means you get small, weak little radish bulbs. The best defense here is a 3-pronged attack. 1, call in the cavalry. Plant things like dill or fennel nearby to attract ladybugs, which are basically aphid-eating machines. 2, if you've got a full-blown invasion, a direct spray of insecticidal soap will knock their numbers way down. And 3, don't overdo it with the nitrogen fertilizer. Too much creates that super soft, tender new growth that aphids just can't resist. And that brings us to the last of our leaf munchers, the slug. Their damage is a lot messier than the flea beetles. Just ragged, messy holes chewed in the leaves. The dead giveaway, of course, is that slime trail. These guys are creatures of the night, and they absolutely love damp weather. So you'll often just wake up one morning to find the damage already done. The good news is the solutions are pretty straightforward. The classic beer trap really does work wonders. Slugs are drawn to the yeast, they fall in, and that's the end of that. You can also set up barriers they hate to cross, like gritty diatomaceous earth or copper tape. But honestly, the real long-term win comes from just keeping a clean garden. Tidy up debris and improve your drainage to make your garden way less inviting for them to hang out. All right, so we've covered the enemies we can actually see. But now we go underground, beneath the surface. This is where some of the most frustrating pests do their work, completely out of sight, either destroying the root itself or just snipping the plant off right at the soil line. Oh man, this right here, this is the image that keeps gardeners up at night. The root maggot. You can have these beautiful, perfect, healthy-looking leaves above ground, thinking everything's going great, with absolutely no idea that the radish you're waiting for is being completely hollowed out from the inside. So what are the signs? Okay, the biggest red flag is this. A plant that looks wilted and sad even though the soil is perfectly moist. That's a huge clue that something is wrong with the root system. And when you finally pull it up to see what's going on, yeah, it's tragic. You find a spongy, ruined root just filled with these little white larvae and their gross brown tunnels.
Because this pest is so sneaky and destructive, prevention is absolutely everything. First, crop rotation is non-negotiable. Root maggots love anything in the brassica family, so never, ever plant radishes where you just grew cabbage or broccoli. Second, use insect netting from day one to physically stop the adult flies from ever laying their eggs. And third, you can fight fire with fire. You can actually apply beneficial nematodes to your soil. These are microscopic predators that will hunt down and kill the larvae for you.
Our final pest is the cutworm, and its nickname, the seedling killer, is, well, it's very well earned. This isn't a pest that just nibbles. This is a straight-up assassin that can wipe out an entire row of your brand new seedlings in a single night. You'll know them when you see them. They're these plump, grayish-brown caterpillars that curl up into a little C shape when you bother them. And their method is just brutal and efficient. They chew clean through the stem right at the soil line, and the whole plant just topples over. A few of these guys can destroy a whole afternoon of planting while you're asleep. The defense against these guys is very hands-on. Your absolute best bet is to make these little cardboard collars, just a ring of cardboard around the base of each seedling. It physically blocks them from getting to the stem. And yeah, this might mean you have to go on a nighttime patrol. If you think you're under attack, head out with a flashlight and literally hand pick them off your plants. And one last tip, hold off on adding mulch until your plants are bigger. Bare soil gives them fewer places to hide. So, we've met the top 5 villains of the radish patch. But look, fighting them one by one is just like playing whack-a-mole. You'll drive yourself crazy. The real path to a great harvest is to stop putting out fires and start building a fortress. We're talking about creating a garden environment that's just resilient by its very design. And this image perfectly illustrates that whole strategy. It's built on 4 pillars. You've got your physical barriers, right, like the row covers. You've got natural predators, like the ladybugs we talked about attracting. You've got smart soil and crop practices, like crop rotation. And finally, for emergencies, you've got your organic deterrents, like insecticidal soap. When you bring all 4 of these together, you're not just reacting to pests, you're building a whole system of defense. I just love this piece of wisdom from the source because it nails the whole organic philosophy. Healthy soil and steady care will always beat the spray and chase approach. That's it right there. It's about being proactive, not reactive. You're nurturing a strong, healthy system instead of just running around trying to solve problems after they've already started. Okay, so let's wrap this all up into a simple checklist you can actually use. 1. Rotate your crops every year. 2. Get those row covers on the moment you plant. 3. Check your seedlings every single day. You gotta keep an eye on things. 4. Plant flowers and herbs to bring in the good bugs. And 5. If you do find a plant that's infested, get it out of there immediately to stop the problem from spreading. This right here, this is your game plan for a bountiful harvest. So let's end with this one final thought. Pests are just a fact of life in the garden. They're always out there, they're always waiting for an opportunity. So the real question is this. Now that you know your enemy and you have a solid defense plan, are you ready to defend the harvest you've worked so hard for?